deal. Here's the bottom line. Harry and Meghan have become hate figures for much of Britain, never mind the British media, for two reasons. The first is James Baldwin's timeless quote. I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain. And the second reason is that they gave the finger to Fleet Street. And Fleet Street won't accept that. I sometimes wonder whether, if my old man hadn't been made redundant by the Daily Telegraph, I would have been one of the people leading the line of attack on these two. Because when you've got Fleet Street in your blood, when you've got ink in your blood, any attempt to lead your life as if we're not in charge is greeted with absolute fury. Look at what happens if you dare to stand up to the British tabloid media. They will kick you round the room until you're bruised and bloodied, and quite possibly, in the case of the Duchess of Sussex, of course, contemplating the worst possible way out of that level of abuse and unkindness. And yet they carried on. They refused to buckle. They tried to play by the rules. They sought the kind of deal that royals have been securing through the ages in their dealings with Fleet Street. They tried to get a kind of a hiatus, a reprieve, a ceasefire, but they didn't. They didn't get it. The palace, for good or for ill, did not come in on behalf of Prince Harry and his wife and demand that the vampires of Fleet Street stop sucking their blood every morning. So they decided to do everything their own way. They decided to rewrite their own rulebook and live entirely by that. They decided that they would not dance to anybody's tune but their own. They are not perfect. They are not infallible. Some of the stuff they do is a little bit silly, but my goodness me, they're brave. Imagine that. Imagine growing up in that goldfish bowl and deciding that you're going to smash the glass and see whether or not you can survive. That's what they can never be forgiven for. And nobody understands this better than the Fleet Street machine that needs the royal family just as much as the royal family needs the Fleet Street machine. That relationship is not parasitic, as I used to think. It's symbiotic. There are lines that will never be crossed. And if the unexpected or the unprecedented happens, then the reaction will be negotiated. How can we possibly live in a land where the late Queen's second son, Andrew Windsor, is treated more gently and more quietly, calmly, insert whatever adverb you prefer, than her youngest grandson, or rather the King's youngest son, the current King's youngest son? How can we possibly live in a land where Andrew Windsor is talked of in the same breath as Prince Harry? Think about that for a minute. That's been done because of a deal, whether implicit or explicit, between the royal family and the Fourth Estate, the media, the newspapers. You can keep your access, you can come on your tours, we'll answer your questions. But the other lad, he's out of favour now. And his wife, open season. You can do whatever the hell you want with her. You can write what you want, you can say what you want, you can print what you want, you can broadcast whatever you want about her. I know what you're thinking. It didn't exactly end well where we gave you the same free pass on Harry's mum. But hey-ho, the world has turned. That memory has faded a bit. So open season on Meghan Markle. Write what you want, say what you want, do what you want. So they did. And they continue to do so, which is why even today, the front pages of every newspaper are somehow turning the fact that they are more interesting than his brother and sister-in-law into something of which they are guilty. Netflix trailer steals the spotlight from Wales's. It's absolutely pathetic. Breathtakingly pathetic, actually, that the machine, the war machine of Fleet Street is now so devoid of justification for its bile that they're claiming the release date of a Netflix film is a declaration of war. And do you know what? I hope it is. I hope it is, because if my wife had been treated like his wife has been treated, all bets would be off. If I had gone to my brother and asked him to help me protect my wife from the kind of abuse that Meghan Markle has been exposed to, and that abuse seeps from mainstream media to social media and drips into every corner of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And my brother had turned around to me and said, yeah, well, there it is. I'd be declaring war. If this was 400 years ago, I'd be raising a flag on Hounslow Heath and contemplating a coup for the crown. But those days are over. The prize today is just PR. The prize today is public image. And here, finally, is the question. It's just envy, isn't it? The whole point of the attacks upon Prince Harry and his wife, whether they're coming from within the palace, on the record, off the record, nowhere near the record, or whether it's coming from Fleet Street, is because they're simply better at everything. They're better at PR. They're more media savvy. They're more articulate. They're more empathetic. Crucially, they're more accomplished. Look at their careers. Compare their careers. They're more accomplished and they're more attractive. So here is the real sin of Harry Windsor. And this only occurred to me last night. It's box fresh. I'm going to throw open the phone lines and you can kick it to pieces if you want on 0345 6060973. But the real reason for the hatred, the viciousness, and this astonishing level of abuse is because they make a complete mockery of royalty itself. The idea that he gets the top job and he sits in the sidecar for the rest of his life is absolutely absurd. But we can never ever admit that because it shakes the very foundations of the royal family. So, do you think that the real reason why Prince Harry and his wife have been turned into public enemies numbers 1 and 2 in this country?
If you've looked at a British newspaper or scrolled through certain corners of social media in the last 48 hours, you'd think the sky was falling. Why? Because Prince Harry and Meghan have dared to set foot in Australia. But this isn't 2018. There's no Buckingham Palace stamp on the itinerary. There's no taxpayer-funded royal tour banner. This is a private, self-funded business and philanthropic trip. Harry and Meghan are in Melbourne and Sydney as business owners, as founders, and as global figures who, wait for it, actually have a job to do. Yet the UK media is absolutely rattled. They are vibrating with a level of fury that would be hilarious if it wasn't so dangerously transparent. Today we're going to dive deep into why this Australian trip has sent Fleet Street into a meltdown. We're using the brilliant insights of James O'Brien to dismantle the symbiotic relationship between the palace and the press, and we're going to ask the question the tabloids are too scared to answer. What is their actual end goal here? Let's get one thing straight. The British media doesn't hate Harry and Meghan because they moved to California. For permission. As James O'Brien so perfectly put it, when you have Fleet Street ink in your blood, any attempt to lead your life as if the media isn't in charge is greeted with absolute fury. For decades, the deal was simple. The royals give the press access, the press writes what the palace wants, and the cycle of symbiosis continues. Harry and Meghan broke the machine. They didn't just leave, they gave the finger to the entire system. And Fleet Street, they can't accept that. They will kick you around the room until you're bruised and blooded, which we saw happen to Meghan, just to prove they still have the power to do it. Look at the headlines right now. They're calling this a faux royal tour or cosplay. Why the bitterness? Because Harry and Meghan are proving that they don't need the institution to be impactful. They're visiting the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, supporting veterans at the National Veterans Arts Museum, and leading summits on mental health and digital safety. They are doing the work, but they're doing it on their own terms. And that, my friends, is the ultimate sin in the eyes of the British press. There's a James Baldwin quote that O'Brien frequently references. I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain. This describes the UK media's obsession with the Sussexes perfectly. If they stop hating Meghan, they have to admit they were wrong. They have to admit they bullied a woman out of the country. They have to admit that the palace machine failed to protect its own. Instead of dealing with that pain, they double down. They turn every positive move into a declaration of war. When the Sussexes released a Netflix trailer, the press claimed it was time to steal the spotlight from the Prince and Princess of Wales. It's pathetic. It's breathtakingly pathetic that the release date of a documentary is treated like a tactical strike. But why? Because the machine is devoid of justification. They have no real arguments left, so they manufacture bile to keep the hate alive. If they don't have Harry and Meghan to kick, they might actually have to look at the state of the UK, or, heaven forbid, the other members of the royal family. Speaking of other members of the family, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the prince in the royal lodge. How can we live in a world where the king's brother, Andrew Windsor, is treated more gently, more quietly, or more calmly than the king's own son? Think about the deal that must exist for that to happen. It is either implicit or explicit. The media gets to keep their access to the working royals, and in exchange they go easy on the scandals that actually matter. But the other lad, Harry, and his wife? It's open season. The media was given a free pass. Print what you want, say what you want, broadcast whatever nonsense you can dream up. They did it to Diana, and even though that didn't end well, they've decided the world has a short memory. They are doing it to Meghan with even more vitriol because she's a woman of colour who had the audacity to be more everything. Here is the box-fresh realisation James O'Brien hit on, and it's the most important point of all. The hatred, the viciousness and the abuse exist because Harry and Meghan make a mockery of royalty itself. The entire foundation of the British monarchy is built on the idea of the sidecar. You get the top job, and everyone else sits in the sidecar for the rest of their lives, staying quiet and doing what they're told. But what happens when the people in the sidecar are simply better at everything than the people in the lead car? They're more media-savvy, they're more articulate, they're more empathetic, they're more accomplished. Look at their careers. Look at how they handle a crowd. Harry and Meghan are inherently more interesting, more attractive, and more effective global communicators. When they show up in Australia on a self-funded trip and get more global engagement than a state visit, it shakes the very foundations of the institution. If royalty isn't about being the best or the most impactful, but just about who was born first, then Harry and Meghan's success as private citizens proves that the royal part was never the secret sauce. They are the secret sauce. The UK media can't admit that. They can't admit that the couple they've labelled public enemies number 1 and 2 are actually the most successful exports the UK has had in a decade. The Australian trip isn't a threat to the monarchy because of what Harry and Meghan are doing. It's a threat because of who they are. They are brave. They grew up in a goldfish bowl, decided to smash the glass, and, against all odds, they survived. They refused to buckle. They refused to dance to a tune played by the vampires of Fleet Street, and for that they will never be forgiven by the British press. But here, on this channel, we see through the smoke and mirrors. We see the war machine of the media for what it is, a desperate, envious attempt to dim a light they can't control. If you're tired of the bias, tired of the bullying, and you want a place that stands up for the truth about Harry and Meghan, then you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now, Join the community, turn on notifications, and let's keep holding the media accountable. Thanks for watching, and remember, they can try to rewrite the rules, but we're the ones reading between the lines. See you in the next one.